Okay, let's begin. Let's get into it. Let's take a moment and close our eyes together. And just find the sensation of your body in your seat. If your feet are touching the earth or touching the floor, you can tune into that sensation too. And we just tap into this present moment reality of being a human sitting in front of a screen. Once again, but let's tap into both of these things. First, the human, you, me, sitting here. Who are we? Who are you sitting there today? What brings you to this screen today? Really, you may have a relationship with me and some of the other people here too. Maybe that's part of it. But let's tap into something even deeper than our relationship to each other. And let's tap into our relationship to the work, our relationship to sadhana itself, our relationship to the spiritual path. Yeah, for many of us is a path of healing. So we tap into all the years, all the months, all the days, however long we've been walking this path of healing. For some of us, it's been a lifelong relationship with the divine itself. Sometimes on again, off again. Sometimes there have been rocky patches along the way. But now here we are, and we have a different relationship. We have a different relationship to the healing. Many of us have some time under our belt, so to speak, of healing. Many of us in this group are healers now. We're those who help others with their path, with their spiritual healing. Some of us, you could say, are what we call friends of God. People who have an established relationship with that divine power that can introduce others to that relationship too. So we tune into ourselves. Who are we? What are we doing here? And then we also take this moment to tune into the here. We tune into this screen, this moment, this conversation. I'm doing it too. I'm coming here with you as a student of this very old, very sacred body of work. Maybe if I've been working with this for 30 some years, it seems like a lot if you've been working with this for 5 or 10 years. But compared to 2,500 years or 4,000 years, we're both, all of us, really new, really late to the party, so to speak. So I take this moment to connect with the tradition, to connect with my teachers and their teachers, and let you connect with your teachers and their teachers. And the tradition and culture that all of this comes from, with so much respect and gratitude and openness. We begin every session by finding our openness. Okay. You can take that openness and open your eyes. So let's talk about being these kinds of people who need this. I found a poem that I've shared with some of you, and I want to share it with everyone now. One second. So I found this poem, and it was so special how it came to me, actually. Um, I arrived back in LA from our recent trip to New York. And oftentimes that is not a easy landing for me. Coming from the East Coast back to the West Coast for so many reasons. And in this particular case, I also landed with a pretty bad cold. You might be able to still hear it in my voice a little bit. And so I did then, after the long trip from Lower East Side to JFK, from JFK through the air to LAX, then we have to drive from LAX up to our little town in Ojai, which is another couple of hours after all of that, with a head cold. And when I turned my car on, it linked with my phone and just automatically put on this audiobook that I had sent to someone earlier. And it was Robert Bly and Coleman Barks reading poems of Rumi to live music. It's a fantastic audiobook. If you're in the training, it will be in the curriculum page as like one of the resources. Anyway, so I heard this poem, so I listened to the poetry the whole drive back, and literally was carried back on all of this amazing devotional poetry. And this is Coleman Barks, who is himself a Sufi practitioner and a disciple of a great Sufi guru, who has taken translations of Rumi. He's not a translator, doesn't speak Persian. Has taken translations of Rumi and then rendered them into the poetry that most of us know of as Rumi. It's really Coleman Barks' English poetry. He's a poet himself. It's always important to say that. And because it's both Rumi and it's also Coleman Barks, and Coleman Barks's guru in that tradition that he comes from. Anyway, this is such a powerful one. He says, all day I think about it, and then at night I say it. Where did I come from? And what am I supposed to be doing? I have no idea. My soul is from elsewhere. I'm sure of that. And I intend to end up there. He says, this drunkenness began in some other tavern. When I get back around to that place, I'll be completely sober. Meanwhile, I'm like a bird from another continent sitting in this aviary. The day is coming when I fly off. But who is it now in my ear who hears my voice? Who says words with my mouth? Who looks out with my eyes? What is the soul? I cannot stop asking. If I could taste one sip of an answer, I could break out of this prison for drunks. I didn't come here of my own accord, and I can't leave that way. Whoever brought me here will have to take me home. He says, this poetry, I never know what I'm going to say. I don't plan it. And when I'm outside the saying of it, I get really quiet and barely speak at all. I don't know if you can relate to this, but I know that I've always related to this idea of feeling like a bird from another country, a bird from another continent, as he rendered it. Of having this sense of like, who are these people? You know, like being a kid sitting with my family. And then again, in the different rooms that I found myself in spiritual learning, finding some of those people like, oh, these are my people. This is my family. And then being like, wait, are these my family? Is this it? And then moving on to another room and another room. A big part of bhakti yoga, and something that we're going to be diving into very deeply together, is the idea of sangha, of spiritual community. But you could say like sangha with a capital S. I mean, sangha meaning the community, which, if we're lucky, we'll have in this lifetime with people who are still alive. But that we have the opportunity and the connection to be in sangha with the great ones, with the masters, with the poets like Rumi, or like Coleman Barks for that matter. That we have the opportunity to have sangha, to have community with those who have been born into the same world that we're born into, in all kinds of different circumstances, but who had that same quality of feeling like the bird from another continent. Have you ever had that? Have you ever experienced that? Either thing. On one hand, that sense of alienation and that sense of orphanedness. I know I've experienced that so much in this lifetime. And have you experienced the other? Have you experienced that sense of adoption? I can remember that recording, or a version of that recording that I came upon when I was in my early 20s. I had just been introduced to like serious spiritual training. It was like when I first was connected with my guru and her community in Chicago where I was living. And I was just kind of discovering who I was in that sense. And I came up on it was a cassette tape. I think it was a 2 tape box set. And I can remember driving around Chicago listening to these poems and just like weeping with relief. Many of those couplets and those verses are still in me. I can remember one of them says, "There's a kind of poverty that is pure gain." This is one of them. I'm sure I could write down a whole page. And what it was it's not that the just that the poetry was so good and that that particular offering of these two, you know, senior mystics that come from my American culture made this beautiful offering with the music and the whole thing. That was part of it, but a huge part of it was that recognition of like, oh, someone is speaking about something so rare that I care about so much, that is so important to me. That's what we're going to be diving into in this training is we together as a group, as a little mini sangha, are connecting into this sangha with a capital S and receiving these teachings and working with the teachings and looking at the teachings in such a way that we get to nourish ourselves every day. Every time we meet, but like we're practicing and working with this every day for this time that we're together. But then also, especially for those of you that are teachers, and I know that not everyone in the group considers themselves a teacher as such, but you as a carrier of this work, you as a servant of love, a servant of wisdom, a servant of just sanity in these times of unprecedented insanity, that you get to find what that flag is for you that you can fly. What is that song that you can sing? What is that vibration that you can put out into the world that the other orphans can hear? You know, some of us are authors and artists with really broad reach of people that are tuned into what we're doing. Some of us, you know, are more, you know, working with people one on one, and some of us are doing work that isn't directly spiritual itself. It's okay. But I know that if we sat down and had a conversation, I'm thinking of a few people in particular in the group that have really broad, you know, reach of people. We want to make sure that those handfuls of the spiritual orphans can hear, even if what we're putting out is broader, even if what we're putting out is, you know, just offering help, just like in general, that the people that are the spiritual orphans can hear that tone that I heard so many years ago in that recording and be like, oh, they're speaking to me. We also, during this time together, we're going to get into practice. We're going to get into a practice in a way that's new for me. Not new, like I haven't had it before, but new as in a level of practice that like hasn't been necessarily a part of my lifestyle in a while. I'm not trying to say we're going to have so much practice or it's going to be some big arduous thing. But I think that this is a time when we really need to go into training. Like we need to actually do a practice that is moving the needle, that is doing some work on us. And let me say what I mean by that. In physics, I say this as if I ever paid attention in physics class. I absolutely did not. Um, but in physics, this is one thing that I remember is that work only happens if there's movement. It doesn't matter how much exertion happens. Work only happens if there's movement. So if you go and you push on a mountain or you just push on the wall in your house, it doesn't matter how hard you push it. According to the definition of physics, work doesn't happen until that wall moves or the mountain moves. So I want our practice that we do together to have that quality where it actually moves something for us. It actually helps us. It actually is keeping us in a different condition over this next 9 months. And for some of you, I've already spoken with you and heard from you that you're really keen. You want to practice every day. That's fantastic. We're going to practice almost every day because, look, as a parent, I understand. Sometimes life is just in such a way that we don't get a chance to sit down and have a formal practice and light our candle and give ourselves a chunk of time to sit and meditate or work with mantra or whatever the case may be. I get that. And I also want to encourage us, not just encourage us, I want us to create a container where we're supporting each other to get in there almost every day and doing the serious practice. Like we're going to be sharing the practices week by week. They'll be a little bit different every time. And many of you have long-standing established practices that I don't want you to quit for the sake of being in the training. But so that, and I don't mean by the end of the 9 months, I mean by the end of the first 9 days, we're in a different state. We're walking around for this whole time in an altered state, in a state where we're a little bit more awake, where our perception is a little bit more clear, and we're also a little bit more tenderized. One of the big afflictions of our time is a sort of armoring and a sort of deadening, a sort of padding that we bring on to ourselves to make it through this porcupine world. We're living in a time where there are energies we do not want to get on our tender hearts. There's a kind of an intelligence in that padding, for sure. But we want to, during this time together, be less padded and more open. And that means that we want to be strong enough to be tender. We want to be like wise enough to be able to like really have our eyes completely open as we move through our life. So what does this look like? We're going to be meditating. We're going to meditate, like I said, almost every day. We're going to work with mantra, both in the sense of like using mantra as an internal meditation practice, but also working with mantra in terms of doing out loud namasankirtana, chanting practice. We may do some mantra in terms of shloka recitation, which is not just repeating like Sri Ram, Jai Jai Ram, like in a musical sense, but like repeating shlokas or verses from different Sanskrit sources that have a different sort of an effect. They're also affirmational. We're going to be studying, but this studying, you guys, it's not just like studying information. And a lot of you know this, okay? I know this already. A lot of you have already done this with me before, so I know you know it on that level. But just to say, for people that might not be so familiar, where I'm holding this, my copy of Bhagavad Gita, we're going to be in relationship with the material. And this is a weird thing to say, but it's like there's this almost like an animism that flows through the bhakti tradition. You know, part of it is like relating to um, an icon. You know, like I don't think you can see, but Kali Maha. I have a small little painting of Kali Maha on the altar here, or a picture of like a master, Bhagavan Nityananda is there. It's an inanimate object. It's a photograph. It's a painting. Maybe it's a statue. And so we have these relationships with these inanimate objects as a way to have a relationship with the energy that they represent. So they're, you know, representational. But also not just what they represent, but these inanimate objects become these portals to the energy itself. We're going to play with this in this session today when we practice together. But we start to have that same relationality with the work, with the teachings that we're studying. Does this make sense? At a certain point, I'm going to turn the recording off and we can have a conversation about this, and you can tell me whether it makes sense or not. But it's so exciting to be able to introduce you to this kind of study, because it's not just Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana that you've heard me teach about that before. If you've been in training with me before, that is the traditional way of study that comes from the Indian tradition. Shravana, you hear it. Manana, you work with it. Nididhyasana, it becomes like embodied in you. Okay, that's going to happen. But there's this other thing that I've been discovering as I'm working on the writing projects that I've been working on recently that I've never taught about before. But it's this thing. It's the same way that you can have a relationship with a statue that can change your life. Not because of your faith in it, not because of just like your religious zeal, not because of that statue happened to be the really powerful statue, not that either. But this really magical thing unlocks. This magical element unlocks when we relate to the work in this way. There's a story. Here's an example. I'm going to tell you a story from Mahabharata. And the story has a lesson, but the story also can be this portal. So there was a great martial arts master. He was called Dronacharya, greatest martial arts master in the land. And he was the master of the royal warriors, like Arjuna, the voice in Bhagavad Gita that is speaking with Krishna. Arjuna and his brothers and the other royal warriors would work with Dronacharya, and he would teach them archery and all these great stories of how he would teach them, train them. And nearby where his training camp was a little tribal boy named Eklavya. And Eklavya, being a tribal boy, was not allowed to study with Dronacharya because they lived in this system where you had to be in a certain caste. And being a tribal boy, Eklavya was outcast. So nonetheless, his devotion made him brave enough to sort of like go to Drona and ask to be his disciple. And Drona said, sorry, kid, but we can't do this. And Eklavya just looked at Drona for a long time, from head to toe, and said, okay, thank you for agreeing to see me. And Eklavya went back to his place in the woods and took clay and made a statue of Drona. He memorized his form in that short meeting. He was so hungry for what Drona had to give. He had this deep hunger to learn the martial arts. And so he made this clay form of Dronacharya in his place where he lived. And every day he would sit in front of it and make offerings to it. And then he would close his eyes and he would receive teachings. Then he would go and practice them. Well, this went on for some time until Eklavya learned this one trick, a shooting trick that only Drona could do, and Drona didn't teach even to his top students. It was the ability to shoot an arrow at a running dog and weave the arrow through the dog's teeth without harming the dog. So Eklavya learned to do this. And one fine day, Drona was there in his training camp with the royal students, and a dog came running through with a homemade arrow woven through its teeth. And Drona was surprised and who did this? Which one of you did this? I didn't show you this trick. You're not allowed to do this trick. And they all said, we didn't do it. And Eklavya had learned to do the trick. There's more that goes on in that story, which I'm not going to get into right now. But what happened in that? How did Eklavya do that? How did that knowledge transmit? Well, we're not talking about shooting arrows through dogs' teeth. We're talking about unlocking the human potential for love. We're talking about unlocking the human potential for being in sacred relationship with each other. We're talking about unlocking our ability to live in wisdom. That knowledge wants to be known. That energy wants to flow. So when we tune into something like Bhagavad Gita, that's going to be one of the main things that we're studying is the 700 verses of the Bhagavad Gita. Also Narada Bhakti Sutra, also poems from poets like Rumi or Kabir or Mirabai or Akka Mahadevi, all of these great bhakti poets that come from the tradition too. And in other texts and other teachings as well. But we're not just studying them, you see, we're relating to them as these living portals, like at Klavia making the clay statue of Drona. We take this, it's just paper and ink, or pixels and light, and we relate to them in such a way, with our hunger, with our devotion, with our with that intensity of practice, in a way where they come alive, where they activate, and they start to speak to us. And I should also say, we're going to do this in a way that I have also never done before, where the verses of the Gita that we're studying are verses that I am translating, that I am rendering newly, from my book on the field of Dharma, which is this little commentary on Bhagavad Gita. In this latest rewrite of the book, I have to translate all the verses. I can't use previous translations. Originally, it was like a copyright thing. It's so stupid. But when I looked at it, these translations are not that great. A lot of them are based on old racist and white supremacist translations. And I'm going through and working with my Indian colleagues, working with some of my linguistic expert colleagues, and working with, quite frankly, artificial intelligence and technology. I'm going through and scouring every single verse that we're studying, and making sure that that stuff doesn't come through, that we're studying it is like raw dog, naked, unfiltered as possible with the language, whether it be Sanskrit in the case of the scriptures, or the more colloquial languages in terms of some of the teachings, and definitely the poetry. The Marathi, so in this particular translation of the Gita, it also has a translation of Yaneshwar Maharaj's Marathi commentary. It's beautiful. This is a beautiful book. It's on your reading list. I'm discovering that even that translation has a lot of skew in it. So all of the verses that we're studying from Yaneshwar, I'm working with Marathi speakers, with Dr. Varsha and her husband Amol, and looking at the original, like actually looking at the original source. How did Yaneshwar say it? And how can we translate it for our purposes? Okay. So the point being that I don't expect people in the training necessarily to then go out and teach the Bhagavad Gita, to teach Narada Bhakti Sutra. This portal is for us. The portal that you open for your people is something different, but we want to make our portal as strong as can be. Here in my copy of the Gita, I found this image that my friend Balaram made for me. It's a woodcut. And this is a Chataka bird. A Chataka is one of the real icons of our work here. The Chataka is this legendary bird. It's spoken of in sacred poetry, also romantic poetry too. But the Chataka bird, it is said, will only drink water directly from the sky. It will only drink rainwater, and it will die of thirst before it will drink anything else. Isn't that badass, the Chataka? And so the Chataka becomes this symbol of authenticity, and the importance of the work being real. And I think that that is something I let me say it this way. It is something that I hope that we aspire to as a community. That, yoga, quote unquote, has come to mean so many things in this day and age. But I feel like one of the most important things that defines what real yoga is, if we can say, is the quality of satya, is the quality of authenticity, that it's not fake, that our connection to the divine, which is what bhakti is about, is authentic. That it's like real for us. It's as real for us as the stress of our life. It's as real for us as the horrors in the world. And that whatever it is that we're connecting to through our practices, it's not just theoretical, but that it's like it's there for us in our life. That's what we're doing. That's what the bhakti is. And that's going to be the goal of this 9 months that we're together. I want to do a little practice. So wherever you are, and when we do sessions in the course, we're going to take breaks from the screen. We're going to take times where we just turn off the cameras. We're going to take and just listen. We're going to take times where we just turn it all off and go do something and come back. Because the sessions for the course will be longer than this, so that we can try to get beyond this Zoom fatigue and work with what it's like to sit in front of the screens. But for now, just make yourselves comfortable. We're just going to do a short and potent drop in here. And we're just going to do a simple body opening, really simple. Just stretch our arms up and shake our arms out. And stretch our arms up and shake our arms out. And then twist in our seat to both sides. And back to center. As simple as that, in the interest of time. And then close your eyes and be comfortable. We're going to work with specific pranayamas in the training. I'm really excited about introducing pranayama as one of the practices in this training that I haven't done so much before. But for this, just let your breath be deliberate and take any fakeness out of it. Especially spiritual fakeness. If we've been around yoga classes, we know about the performative ujjayi breath. That ujjayi breath that you just make sure that everyone else can hear. Just make your breath deliberate and embrace it with gratitude. Just add that little bit of bhavana practice. You're just breathing authentically with a little bit of gratitude for the breath. Chataka. What is that rain that you're waiting for? What is that love? What is that divine power? What is that truth with the capital T? What is that which is truly worth you giving your life? What is it for you, Chataka? What is that singular source of water that you'll wait for? Now, and we haven't even begun yet. Okay. We haven't even begun the training yet. But right here, find your beloved, your divine beloved, whatever that is to you, even if it's unclear, even if it's murky, or maybe it can mean so many different things that it takes you a second to choose something. Maybe it's just a mystery with a capital M. But just tune into it in this moment and see if you can use this authentic, grateful breath to draw it closer, to draw you closer to it. Can you get a drop of that water in your mouth? And this is a moment where we want to feel the success. We want to feel that, oh, yeah, there it is. Like, satisfaction. We want to find that. But in this moment, we want to also find the dissatisfaction. We want to find the longing. We want to find the gap. Can you feel that too? We want to feel the openness, but we also want to feel the armor. We want to feel the haze of our attention span issue. This is the beginning. We're crossing a threshold. On the other side of the threshold, we'll have more capacity. We're going to develop this strength. This is the weakest that we will be for quite some time. We want to feel that too. It's okay. If we are in touch with the beloved, even a little bit, can we pull it closer and get its fragrance on us so we have something to take away from this little practice? We'll learn how to do that more, but even for now, let's not leave this moment without having that scent on our skin. And then we finish by just taking a moment and communicating with that beloved. Is it a thank you? See you soon? Is it what the fuck, beloved? why is everything like this? Is it help? Is it what is it? Make that communication in your silent heart language now. And then you can let your eyes come open once again. We'll stop the recording here and I'll say goodbye to everyone who is watching this as a replay and hope to see you soon. People in the training, we'll see you next week. If you're interested in the training, reach out and we can talk about whether or not it's going to be the thing for you this year. Thank you for joining me for this.